The fire crackled and popped, sending embers spiraling into the Carolina night sky like tiny orange spirits fleeing toward the stars. Kevin was in the middle of telling some story about a base he'd caught 3 years ago, a story that got bigger every time he told it. And Brian was calling him a liar in that good-natured way old friends do when they've known each other long enough that insults are really just affection. "I'm telling you, it was at least ALB," Kevin insisted, gesturing with his bourbon glass so emphatically that some of it sloshed over the rim. "Maybe 9. Last year you said it was 6, Brian shot back. Year before that, it was 4. At this rate, by the time we're 50, you'll be claiming you wrestled a marlin out of Lake Norman. You're just jealous because the biggest thing you ever caught was a colt." I was half listening, nursing my own bourbon, feeling that particular contentment that comes from being exactly where you're supposed to be. The cabin on Lake Norman was sacred ground. 3 days every October, no wives, no work, no obligations. Just fishing, drinking, and the kind of conversations men only have when there's no one around to impress. We'd been doing this for 15 years, since before I'd married Nicole, since before Brian started his security company, since before Kevin A. Patton at his law firm. "Greg, back me here," Kevin said. "You saw the pictures?" "I saw a fish," I allowed. Whether it was ATLB or 8 O's, I couldn't tell you. "Traitor," I smiled and pulled out my phone. Just a habit. Checking the Ring doorbell app, making sure the house was quiet back home. Nicole had texted earlier saying she was going to have a quiet night, maybe watch that cooking competition show she liked, go to bed early. "Don't worry about me," she'd written with a heart emoji. "Have fun with the boys." The notification showed motion at 8:47 p.m. I tapped it, expecting a delivery driver. Maybe a neighbor's dog wandering through the yard like the Henderson's retriever liked to do. The footage loaded slowly on the cabin's spotty sigh. A silver BMW pulled into my driveway. I didn't recognize it. Not one of our neighbor's cars, not anyone I could place. A man stepped out, tall, well-dressed, even from the doorbell camera's elevated angle. He was carrying roses, red roses, the expensive kind from that florist on Providence Road that charged $40 for a dozen. Before he could reach the door, it swung open. Nicole was standing there in a black dress I'd never seen before. Heels, her hair done up the way she wore it for date nights. Our date nights, the ones that had gotten fewer and farther between over the past year. She'd been waiting for him. They embraced in the doorway. Not a quick hug, not a friendly greeting between acquaintances. His hand slid to the small of her back and stayed there, fingers spreading possessively, her arms wrapped around his neck. The kind of embrace that speaks to months of practice, to intimacy built in stolen hours. Then they stepped inside, and my front door closed behind them. I watched the footage 3 times. My hand was shaking. I noticed it distantly, like it belonged to someone else. But my face must have been stone because Kevin glanced over mid-argument with Brian and went right back to making his point about the fish. I stood up slowly, like a man twice my age, every joint protesting a weight that had nothing to do with my body. "Everything all right?" Kevin asked, pausing his story. "Payan, your wife just texted me." The lie came out smooth, natural. "I didn't know I had that in me. Something about an emergency at your place. White heater or something. She couldn't reach your phone." Brian frowned, pulling out his cell. "She didn't text me anything. Maybe she couldn't get through. Signal's terrible out here." I was already grabbing my keys, my jacket. "I'm going to head back just in case." You know how Karen worries about that stuff? You sure? Kevin asked. It's a 4-hour drive, man, and you've been drinking. I'll get coffee on the way. Sober up. I managed something like a smile. At least I think I did. Probably nothing, but I'd feel better checking. You guys stay. No sense in all of us leaving. Kevin stood up, studying me with those lawyer eyes he'd developed over 20 years of reading witnesses and defendants. Eyes that could spot deception from across a courtroom. Greg, you look like you've seen a ghost. Just tired. Long week at the office. I clapped him on the shoulder, maybe too hard. I'll call you tomorrow. The drive home took 4 hours. It felt like 4 days. I replayed the footage on my phone, every red light, every rest stop. Every moment the road was straight enough that I could glance down without killing myself. Each time, hoping I'd see something different. AP height missated. Maybe the lighting was weird. Maybe it was a cousin she'd never mentioned, an old friend from college, someone she was helping with a surprise for me. Each time I watched my wife greet a stranger like a lover, like someone she'd been waiting for, like I didn't exist. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't punch the steering wheel or call her demanding answers. I just drove. And somewhere around Greensboro, something inside me went cold and quiet. The part of me that wanted to rage, to confront, to demand explanations. It went silent. In its place, something else woke up. Something patient. Something that understood, on a level beyond conscious thought, that the next few moves I made would determine everything. I didn't pull Betrayal at 300 in the morning. Instead, I parked on Westbrook Lane, one street over, and cut through the Hendersons' backyard to get a view of my own house. The grass was wet with dew, soaking through my shoes, and I could smell the last of Mrs. Henderson's roses dying in the October chill. The silver BMW was still there, parked beside Nicole's SUV like it belonged. The lights in our bedroom were on. I sat in the shadow of Mrs. Henderson's magnolia tree and waited. My phone was fully charged. I took photos of the BMW license plate, model, the parking job slightly crooked like the driver had been in a hurry to get inside. I noted the time in my phone's notepad. I waited some more. The cold seeped through my jacket into my bones. I'd been a linebacker in college. Not good enough to go pro, but good enough to learn discipline, to learn how to read an opponent, to understand that patience wins more games than aggression. I sat in that shadow for 2 hours without moving. At 5:17 a.m., my front door opened. He emerged looking rumpled and satisfied. That particular male swagger of a man who just spent the night somewhere he shouldn't have been. He was straightening his collar, running a hand through his hair. Even from 50 yards away in the grey light of early dawn, I could see the smile on his face. Nicole stood in the doorway wearing my robe, the grey one she'd given me for Christmas 2 years ago, the one she'd said made me look distinguished. They kissed. Not passionate, not desperate. Casual, comfortable. The kiss of two people who'd done this so many times it had become routine. Then she patted his chest, said something I couldn't hear, and he walked to his car. He got in his BMW. She watched him go, hugging herself against the morning chill, then went back inside. I followed him at a distance. He drove carefully, hoping every speed limit, using his turn signals. The model citizen, the upstanding professional, heading home after a night of destroying my life. The drive took 15 minutes, winding through streets I knew well, past the elementary school where we voted, past the grocery store where Nicole did our shopping, past the coffee shop where she met her book club. When he pulled into a driveway, My stomach dropped through the floor. I knew that house. I'd been there for 4th of July barbecues, standing around the grill with a beer while the wives chatted on the patio. I'd been there for Christmas parties, exchanging awkward white elephant gifts and pretending to enjoy mulled wine. I'd been there for book club wine nights when I'd pick up Nicole at 10:00 and she'd be giggly from too much peanut. It was Tyler and Amanda Brooks' house. Tyler Brooks, financial advisor, managed portfolios for half the professionals in Charlotte, including several of my business associates. Married to Amanda for 14 years. 2 kids, Emma and Jake, both under 10. Coached his son's little league team. Served on the board of their neighborhood HOA. By every measure, a pillar of the community. Amanda, Nicole's best friend for 8 years. The woman she called her soul sister, whatever that meant. The woman she'd cried with when Amanda's mother passed from cancer 2 years ago. The woman she'd helped plan a surprise anniversary party for just last spring. The woman who'd thrown Nicole a birthday party at her house 6 months ago, while her husband was probably already sleeping with the guest of Hannah. My wife was sleeping with her best friend's husband. I sat in my truck for 20 minutes, letting that sink in. The betrayal had just gentled, metastasized into something I couldn't even name. This wasn't just infidelity. This was a systematic destruction of 2 families, 2 friendships, 2 decades of trust, and neither of them had lost a moment's sleep over it. Then I drove home. Nicole was in the kitchen when I walked in at 7:15, aching coffee, humming something cheerful. She looked freshly showered, her hair still damp, innocent as a spring morning. The kitchen smelled like the vanilla lavender candles she liked to burn, and the morning news was playing on the small TV mounted under the cabinet. "You're back early." She turned with that beautiful smile, the one that had stopped me in my tracks at a mutual friend's wedding 11 years ago. The one that had made me think I was the luckiest man alive. Everything okay with Brian? False alarm. I heard my own voice as if from a distance, calm and steady. Karen overreacted about the water heater. Some rumbling noise, but it turned out to be nothing. Figured I'd just come home. Oh, poor Karen. She worries so much. Nicole crossed the kitchen and hugged in. She smelled like different soap, not the vanilla lavender stuff she usually used that we bought in bulk from that organic store. She liked something else, something floral and unfamiliar, something she'd probably showered with to wash him off her skin. "I missed you," she said into my chest. The house was so quiet. "How was your night?" "Oh, boring." She pulled back, looking up at me with those green eyes. Still beautiful, still able to make my heart twist even now. Watched that cooking competition show, the one with the British guy. Had some wine, went to bed early. You know me. Wild Friday night. She laughed at her own joke. Every word was a lie delivered with the sincerity of a saint. No hesitation, no tells, no flicker of guilt in those green eyes. She'd had years of practice, I realized. Maybe our whole marriage. "That sounds nice," I said. "Peaceful." "It was, but I'm glad you're home." She squeezed my hand. "You want eating haste? I can do that thing with the eggs you like." I looked at the woman I'd loved for over a decade. The woman I'd built a life with, bought a house with, ate plans with. The woman I'd defended to my father when he'd said something was off about her. The woman I'd imagined growing old with. Every word out of her mouth was a lie. Every smile was a mask. "I didn't know her. I'd never known her." "That sounds great," I said. "I'm going to shower first. Long drive." I went upstairs. The sheets had been changed. Nicole always made the bed a certain way. Hospital corners on her side, loose tuck on mine. This morning it was all tight corners. Professional, like someone had erased every trace of what had happened there. The pillows were in different positions. There was a water glass on the nightstand. That wasn't mine. I stood in the shower for 20 minutes, letting the water run from hot to cold, and made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her. I wasn't going to rage or cry or demand explanations. I was going to be smart. I was going to learn everything. How long, how many times, what she'd taken from our life to give to him. And then I was going to dismantle her world the same way she'd dismantled mine. Methodically, completely, without giving her the satisfaction of seeing me break, I kissed her forehead before breakfast and told her I loved her. The words tasted like hash, but she'd never know the difference. She'd stopped paying attention to me long ago. Monday morning, I called in personal time, first time in 3 years, and drove across town to an office building I'd never visited before. The name on the directory said Ray's Family Law. Kevin had recommended her when I'd called him Sunday night and told him everything. What do I do? I'd asked him, sitting in my truck in the driveway while Nicole slept peacefully inside. What the hell do I do with this? Kevin had been quiet for a lot. We'd known each other since freshman year at State, survived pledging the same fraternity, stood up at each other's weddings. He'd never been one to sugarcoat things. You do this right or you don't do it at all, he'd said finally. You go off half-cocked, confront her tonight, and she'll spin this into you the bad guy somehow. Trust me, I've seen it 100 times. Cheating spouse cries victim, gets half of everything, walks away clean while the faithful partner wonders what hit them. So, what do I do? Deanna Reyes. They call her the surgeon. She's expensive and she's worth every penny. Call her first thing Monday. Deanna's office was all glass and sharp angles, not a soft surface anywhere. Modern art on the walls that probably cost more than my first car. She was in her early 50s. Silver, streaked hair pulled back tight, reading glasses perched on her nose like a weapon she could deploy at will. She didn't do small talk. Tell me everything. She said once I was seated across from her desk, don't leave out details because they're embarrassing or painful. The more I know, the better I can help you. I told her. The ring footage, selling Tyler, Amanda's house, Nicole's performance the morning after, the changed sheets, the different soap, the easy lies. Diana listened without interrupting, taking notes on a yellow legal pad in handwriting so precise it looked like calligraphy. When I finished, she set down her pen. First question. Do you want to save your marriage? No. Good. That makes this easier. She leaned back in her chair, studying me with eyes that had seen 1,000 people sitting where I sat, all of them raw and wounded and wanting blood. Here's what you're going to do first, and this is the most important thing I'll tell you. Do not confront her. Not yet, maybe not ever until papers are served. Why? She knows what she did. And every instinct you have is screaming at you to demand answers, to make her admit it, to see some remorse on her face. Ignore those instincts. They'll destroy your case. How? The moment she knows you know, everything changes. She'll start hiding assets. She'll consult her own attorney. She'll build a narrative where she's the victim of a cold, distant husband who drove her into another man's arms. You need to stay ahead of her. Right now, you have something precious, the element of surprise. Don't waste it. I nodded slowly. It went against everything I felt, but it made sense. What else? Document everything. You saw footage of one encounter. I want evidence of a pattern. Timestamps, locations, frequency. It transforms this from a one-time mistake she can cry about into a sustained betrayal she can't deny. How do I get that? Hire a private investigator. A good one. I can recommend someone. Get photos, video, receipts, timestamps. In the meantime, you keep playing the happy husband. Don't change anything, Tumpy Colt. Don't be suspicious. Don't give her any reason to think you know. For how long? As long as it takes to build an airtight case. Diana slid a folder hostess. North Carolina is a fault state. Infidelity affects alimony and property division. We can also pursue alienation of affection against the affair partner. Sue Tyler, if you want. It's an option. Some men find it satisfying. Others find it prolongs the pain. She tapped the folder. This is your homework. I want you to find every financial document in your life, every account, every asset, every debt. Know exactly what exists before she has a chance to hide anything. I signed a retainer agreement for 10,000 and left with a war plan phoning in mind. Brian made the introduction the next day. Frank Ducker, P.I., former homicide detective with Charlotte Mecklenburg, now private. Brian had used him for corporate investigations, employee theft, insurance fraud, that kind of thing. He's expensive, Brian warned me. But he's the best I know. If there's dirt to find, he'll find it. We met at a diner outside town, the kind of place with sticky menus and coffee that's been sitting on the burner too long. Frank was pushing 60, looked like somebody's grandfather, soft around the middle, white hair, gentle handshake, the kind of face you'd trust to watch your kids. Then you looked at his eyes, and you understood why he'd spent 20 years catching murderers. They missed nothing. They catalogued me in the first 3 seconds. Threat assessment, reliability gauge, something else I couldn't name. Brian says you've got a problem, Frank said, stirring sugar into coffee that was already tinsint. My wife's having an affair. I need documentation. What do you have so far? I showed him the ring footage, gave him Tyler's license plate, explained the timeline. Frank watched the video twice, his expression completely neutral. The face of a man who'd seen much worse than infidelity. How long do you think it's been going on? I don't know. Months at least. The way they touched each other, the comfort level, the routine. That wasn't new. Frank nodded slowly. I'll need 2 weeks, maybe 3. Photos, video, pattern of behavior, background on the boyfriend. I'll get you something that holds up in court. He named a figure that made my eyes water, more than I'd spent on my first car. But I didn't hesitate. Do it. One more thing, Frank said, pulling a small notepad from his jacket. Don't do anything stupid while I'm working. Don't follow her herself. Don't confront her. Don't change your behavior at all. The minute she suspects something, she'll get careful. And careful cheaters are harder to catch. I understand you say that now, but there's going to be nights when you're lying next to her, knowing what she did, and every cell in your body is going to want to shake her awake and demand answers. You've got to bury that. Become an actor. Can you do that? I thought about it. Could I kiss her goodbye in the morning knowing she was counting the hours until I left? Could I hold her hand at dinner while she lied about her day? Could I share a bed with a stranger wearing my wife's face? Yeah, I said. I can do that. Frank studied me for a long moment, then nodded. I believe you. Most men in your situation, they can't. They break within it. But you've got something in your eyes. Something cold, something patient. I was a linebacker in college. You learn to read the play wait for the opening, then hit them when they don't see it coming. This isn't football, Greg. No, but the principle's the same. While Frank worked, I did my own ticking. The credit card statements painted a picture I'd been too trusting to see. Dinners at restaurants we'd never been to together. Nice places, the kind he'd go for special occasions. Charges at boutiques for clothes I had never seen her wear. A spa day that cost $300 during a week when she'd told me she was just renting Harrods. Then I found the statement for a Visa card I didn't know existed. Not hidden exactly, just never mentioned. 18 months of charges. Hotels, nice ones, not the kind you'd use for a quick afternoon. Jewelry stores, a lingerie shop on South Boulevard where she'd spent $400, and I'd certainly ever seen whatever she bought. The Ring doorbell history became my obsession. I went back through 3 months of footage and found Tyler's BMW 7 times. Always when I was at work or traveling, always arriving after dark, always leaving before dawn. He'd been coming to my house, sleeping in my bed, drinking my bourbon, and leaving for a hike at home. 7 times in 3 months, and that was just what the camera caught. Living with her became a performance. Oscar-worthy, if I do say so myself. I smiled when she talked about her day, the difficult client, the listing that fell through, the drama in her office. I complimented her, even when it was the same chicken recipe she'd been making for 10 years. I held her hand during movies, kissed her goodbye each morning, asked about her plans for the weekend like I cared. "You seem different lately," she said one night, curled up against me on the couch. "Muy attentive. Is everything okay?" "Just realized I've been taking you for granted," I said. "The firm's been so busy. I feel like I've been neglecting us. I want to do better." She smiled, that beautiful lying smile, and kissed my cheek. "That's so sweet. I love you. I love you too." Some nights, lying beside her in the dark, I'd wonder what she was thinking. Whether she felt guilty, whether she ever looked at me and remembered who we used to be back when the lies hadn't started. Back when I believed I knew her. But then morning would come, and she'd lie about meeting Amanda for coffee, when I knew from Frank's surveillance that she was meeting Tyler at a hotel downtown, and the wondering stopped. The lies came so easily to her, like breathing, like she'd been doing it her whole life. Frank's report arrived on day 13. We met in his office, a cramped space above a dry cleaner that smelled like industrial solvents and old paper. The kind of place nobody would ever think to look. 10 months, Frank said, sliding a folder across his desk. "That's my estimate for how long the affair has been going on. They meet multiple times a week. Sometimes at your house, sometimes at the Marriott downtown every other Thursday like clockwork, sometimes at a corporate apartment Tyler has access to through. They even spent a weekend at a bed and breakfast in Asheville while you were at that conference in Atlanta." He walked me through the documentation. 47 photographs. Tyler and Nicole at restaurants, heads together, laughing, walking through parking lots, her arm through his. Kissing in the doorway of the corporate apartment, entering a hotel room together, the door closing behind them. 12 video clips capturing moments of intimacy I'd never get out of my head. Hotel receipts with Tyler's credit card. A reservation at the bed and breakfast under a fake name. "There's more," Frank said, his voice careful. "Something you need to see." He handed me a separate document. Records from a law firm I didn't recognize. Edward Marsh, attorney at law. She consulted with a divorce attorney 6 weeks ago. Marsh specializes in high-asset divorces. He's the guy you hire when you want to take your spouse for everything they've got. Frank's eyes were steady on mine. She's not just cheating, Hunyan. Craig, she's planning her exit. I stared at the document 6 weeks ago, before I knew anything, before I'd even noticed something was wrong. She'd been positioning herself, getting advice on how to maximize her take, planning her departure like a general planning a campaign. There's a pattern in what she's been telling friends. Frank continued. I've got statements from people willing to talk. She's been saying the marriage is struggling, that you're emotionally distant, that she's tried everything, but you won't change, that she feels neglected and alone. She's building a narrative, exactly for when she files. She wants to be the victim, the lonely wife driven away by her workaholic husband. She's been laying groundwork for months. I sat with that for a long moment. The premeditation of it, the calculation. This wasn't a kind of passion, a moment of weakness. This was strategic, deliberate. She's been playing chess, I said finally, and playing it well. Frank leaned back in his chair. She just didn't know you found the board. I wrestled with the decision for 3 days. Amanda deserved to know. She was a victim in this too, married to a man who'd been betraying her for almost a year with her best friend. But telling her was a risk. Emotions could derail everything. She might confront Tyler, warn him, blow up my entire plan before I was ready. In the end, I couldn't let her live the lie any longer than necessary. Some things you don't heat in. Amanda went to the same coffee shop every Saturday morning, a little place on Park Road with exposed brick and overpriced lats and college students working on laptops in every corner. I showed up at 8, ordered a drink I didn't want, and sat at a table near the back. She walked in at 18:15. Same routine Frank had documented. Yoga pants, hair in a ponytail, tired eyes that spoke to sleepless nights. She'd been worrying about her marriage, I realized, sensing something wrong without being able to name it. She ordered her usual and was scanning the room for a seat when she spotted me. Greg. She came over, surprised but smiling. What are you doing here? I thought you hated paying $5 for coffee. I do, but I needed to talk to you, and I didn't want to do it at your house. Something shifted in her expression. Women's intuition, maybe, or just the recognition that no one seeks out a conversation like this to share good news. She sat down slowly, wrapping her hands around her cup like she needed something to hold on to. Is everything okay? No. I pulled out my phone, opened the Funtons Hunter. Before I show you this, I need you to know I'm sorry. I've been carrying this for 2 weeks, trying to figure out the right way to tell you. And there isn't one. There's no way to make this hurt less. Greg, you're scaring me. I handed her the phone. The photo showed Tyler's BMW in my driveway at 600 a.m., timestamp clearly visible in the corner. Amanda stared at it for a long moment. I don't understand. Why was Tyler at your house that early? He was there all night. He arrived the previous evening with roses. Nicole was waiting for him. The confusion on her face cycled through recognition, denial, back to recognition. Her hand went to her mouth. Her eyes filled with tears that didn't fall. No, that's Tyler. I would show her more video, photos, hotel receipts, a timeline going back 10 months. 10 months. I'm sorry, Amanda. She was quiet for a long moment. The tears spilled over, running silently down her cheeks. She didn't make a sound. Then something changed. Her jaw tightened. Her eyes went cold. The grief hardened into something sharper. Show me everything. I showed her the ring footage, the photographs Frank had taken, the hotel receipts, the timeline. By the time I finished, her coffee had gone cold and her hands had stopped shaking. They were steady now, determined. "I suspected something," she said quietly. "He's been distant for the past year, working late all the time, not interested in me and us. I thought maybe it was stress at work. I thought maybe it was something I was doing wrong." She laughed bitter. "He told me I was imagining things, told me I was being paranoid, made me feel crazy for noticing. I know the feeling. She came to my house last week." Amanda's voice cracked. "Nicole, we had wine on my patio and she told me how lucky I was to have such a devoted husband. She sat in my house, drank my wine, looked me in the eye, and said those words. And the whole time, she couldn't finish. I didn't need her to. I want them to pay for this," Amanda said finally. "Both of them. So do I. And if we do this wrong, they'll spin it, play victims, walk away clean while we look like the villains. We need to be smart." "What do you have in mind?" I'd been thinking about nothing else for 2 weeks. Running scenarios, planning moves, thinking 3 steps ahead like the chess player Nicole thought she was. "My company's 15th anniversary party is in 4 weeks. Everyone we know will be there, including them." Amanda held my gaze. The tears were dry now. What remained was cold determination. "Tell me the plan." The next 3 weeks were preparation. Diana and I went over every financial document I could find, and I found them all. Every account, every investment, every piece of paper Nicole had filed away, thinking I'd never look. My architectural firm was structured as an LLC, separate from marital assets, protected. I'd done that on my accountant's advice 15 years ago, never imagining I'd actually need the protection. I documented every shared account, gathered 11 years of tax returns, reviewed property records and investment statements. Then there was the prenup. I'd almost forgotten about it. Nicole had protested when I had suggested it before the wedding, said it showed I didn't trust her, that I was already planning for failure. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't need a piece of paper to protect yourself," she'd said, crying. In the end, she'd signed it because my parents had insisted, because my father had taken me aside and said, "There's something about that girl, son. Something not right. Get it in writing." I defended her then. I wished I could apologize to him now. He'd been dead for 6 years. But I found myself talking to him sometimes in those quiet moments between planning. "You were right, Dad. I should have listened." Diana reviewed the document with satisfaction. "Solid work. Your father's attorney knew what he was doing." She pointed to a clause near the end. "Infidelity provision. If either party engages in extramarital affairs, spousal support is significantly limited and the cheating spouse forfeits certain claims to marital property." Nicole signed it. Diana smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. Not at all. Her dreams of a major payout just evaporated. The therapy gambit was Nicole's idea. She suggested it 2 weeks before the party, catching me off guard over dinner. "I've been thinking," she said, twirling pasta on her fork. "I feel like we've been disconnected lately. Maybe we should talk to someone, get a professional perspective." It took everything I had not to laugh in her face. Disconnected. She'd been sleeping with her best friend's husband for almost a year, and she wanted to discuss our communication issues. "If you think it'd help," I said carefully, "I'm willing to try." We saw Dr. Lydia Monroe twice, a pleasant woman with a neutral expression and a corner office full of tasteful artwork and strategically placed tissue boxes. Nicole dominated both sessions, painting herself as neglected, lonely, unloved. "Greg works so much," she said, dabbing at her eyes. I understand that the firm is important, but sometimes I feel like I'm married to a ghost. He's physically here, but emotionally it's like I'm alone. I nodded along, asked what I could do better, performed the role of concerned husband trying to understand his wife's needs. "Oh, I had no idea you felt this way," I said. "I want to fix this." Tatten. Monroe seemed to sense something was off. I caught her watching me with a curious expression once or twice, but she remained professional, offering homework assignments about quality time and communication techniques. Let Nicole build her case. Let her create a documented her complaints. When the truth came out, it would all look like the manipulation it was. Planning the anniversary party gave Nicole a purpose. She threw herself into it with an enthusiasm that might have been guilt, driven overcompensation, or might have been genuine excitement. I couldn't tell anymore, and I'd stopped caring. She picked the venue, the Mason Hotel downtown, their grand ballroom with the crystal chandeliers. She approved the menu, surf and turf, because your clients expect a certain level. She helped design the invitations, the seating chart, the decorations. "This is going to be the event of the year," she told me, showing me fabric samples for the table linens. "Everyone will be talking about it." She had no idea how right she was. The guest list included 200 people. Clients I'd worked with for years, contractors, colleagues. My mother driving in from Raleigh. She'd never liked Nicole either, though she'd been too polite to say so outright. Nicole's parents, Frank and Susan, good people who had no idea what their daughter had become. Kevin and Brian, both of whom knew what was coming and had volunteered to stand behind me when it happened. Tyler and Amanda Brooks. Amanda had confirmed they'd attend, playing her own role in this drama flawlessly. Tyler had no idea what awaited him. The venue had large screens for what Nicole believed would accompany retrospective video. 15 years of Taylor and Associates, she'd suggested. Photos from the early days, major projects, testimonials from clients. "It'll be so moving." I'd been working on the presentation myself, I told her. A surprise for the guests. It would definitely be surprising. Week before the party, I tested my wife one final time. "Client meeting in Raleigh tomorrow," I told her over breakfast. "Dinner with their board, staying overnight at the Marriott. I'll be back Thursday afternoon." "That's wonderful, honey." She didn't miss a beat. "I know you've been working hard on the Henderson account. They'd be lucky to land you." I drove to Raleigh that afternoon and parked at a coffee shop with good Wi-Fi and a clear view of my email. Frank was in position outside my house. His first text came at 7:23 p.m. BMW just pulled in. The follow-ups came through the night. Lights in the bedroom. The glow of our television visible through the curtains around 11 p.m. Movement in the kitchen around midnight. Probably getting snacks. The two of them puttering around my house like they owned it. No movement until 5:17 a.m., when Tyler emerged looking disheveled and content. I had everything I needed. Amanda called me the night before the party, voice tight with barely contained fury. "I found something else," she said. "Something you need to know before tomorrow." "What?" "I've been going through Tyler's financial records. Bank statements, firm accounts, everything." "Greg." She paused, and I could hear her breathing hard, trying to control herself. "He's been stealing from his clients, embezzling money to pay for all of it. The jewelry he bought her, the hotel rooms, the trips. There's a Cartier watch on his credit card for $12,000. He bought it with money he stole from people who trusted him with their futures." I sat down heavily. "How much?" "I'm still adding it up." At least 200,000 over 3 years, maybe more. He's been moving it around, hiding it in different accounts, but I found the trail. Some of those clients are my business associates, people I referred to him. I know. Amanda's voice shook. He stole from your friends, from people who trusted him because you vouched for him. Tyler Brooks hadn't just slept with my wife. He'd funded his affair by robbing people I knew, people I'd sent to him, people who trusted him with their retirement because I'd said he was solid. This changes things, I said. How do we use it? I thought about it for a long moment. The affair was personal, a private betrayal between families. The embezzlement was professional, a crime with real victims beyond just Amanda and A. Woo, tell them. I said finally. Everyone at the same time. The Mason Hotel Grand Ballroom had never looked better. Crystal chandeliers caught the light and scattered it across white tablecloths like frozen stars. A string quartet played Vivaldi in the corner, elegant and unobtrusive. 200 guests in their finest drinking champagne, celebrating 15 years of Taylor and Associates architecture. I moved through the crowd, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, playing the gracious host. My mother squeezed my arm and told me she was proud of me. Nicole's father clapped me on the shoulder and said I'd built something real. Kevin caught my eye across the room and gave me an almost imperceptible nod. Nicole was radiant. She worked the room like she owned it, charming my clients, complimenting their wives, playing the devoted spouse with Oscar-worthy conviction. She'd bought a new dress for the occasion, something emerald green that hugged every curve, and probably cost more than I wanted to know. Paid for with money Tyler had stolen from someone's 401k. But she didn't know that. I watched her kiss Amanda's cheek when the Brooks arrived. Amanda didn't flinch, didn't give anything away. She'd been practicing that performance for weeks, steeling herself for this moment. Tyler shook my hand with the confidence of a man who'd been sleeping with my wife for 10 months and gotten away with it. Great turnout, he said, grinning that salesman's grin. Hell of an achievement, Greg. 15 years. You should be proud. Thanks, Tyler. I gripped his hand maybe a little too long. Means a lot coming from you. He had no idea. Kevin appeared at my elbow with a glass of Parpon. You ready? Yeah. You sure about this? Once you start, there's no going back. No unringing this bell. I looked across the ballroom at Nicole, laughing at something one of my clients had said, her hand resting on his arm in that flirtatious way she had. Beautiful, charming, completely Hallen, I'm sure. The string quartet finished their piece at exactly 80:30. I stepped up to the microphone on the small stage at the front of the room. The AV technician, a friend of Brian's who understood the assignment, was in position by the laptop controlling the screens. Thank you all for being here. I waited for the murmurs to die down, the clink of glasses to stop. 200 faces turned toward me, expectant. 15 years ago I started this company with nothing but a drafting table in my spare bedroom and a dream. I worked 80-hour weeks. I got rejected by every bank in Charlotte. I made cold calls until my voice was hoarse and my ego was bruised. A fiend laughs, the expected narrative of humble beginnings. What I've learned in that time is that success isn't just about talent. It's not even about hard work, though that matters. It's about integrity. It's about trust. It's about surrounding yourself with people who are honest, who are loyal, who have your back when times get tough. I paused, looked at Nicole across the room. She was smiling, proud, unsuspecting. Which brings me to a difficult announcement. The screens behind me flickered. The company logo, 15 years of Taylor and Associates. The retrospective she was expecting disappeared. In its place, a simple title card in bold black letters. A timeline of Betrayal. The footage began. Ring doorbell. Tyler's BMW pulling into my driveway. Tyler emerging with roses. Nicole opening the door in her black dress, the one I'd never seen before. The embrace, the kiss, the door closing behind them. The room went silent, 200 people frozen mid-conversation, drinks halfway to their lips. Morn footage. Tyler's car at 300 a.m. At 500 a.m. leaving at dawn. Nicole in my robe watching him go. Hotel check-in records. Frank's photographs. Tyler and Nicole at restaurants, heads together, laughing, walking hand in hand through a parking garage, kissing in a doorway, entering a hotel room together. Someone gasped. Someone else dropped a wine glass. It shattered on the marble floor, and the sound echoed like a gunshot. Nicole's face had gone chalk white. Her hand was at her throat, clutching at nothing. She looked at me, finally looked at me, and saw nothing there but stone. Tyler made a move toward the exit. Amanda stepped directly into his path, blocking him with her body, going somewhere. Her voice carried across the silent ballroom, clear and cold. Don't you want to stay and explain to your clients why their portfolio returns have been funding your affair? Murmurs rippled through the count. I watched 3 men I recognized. Clients of Tyler's, people I'd referred to him. People whose retirement he'd stolen, turned to look at him with expressions that made my blood run cold. I leaned into the microphone. I apologize for interrupting the celebration, but I thought the people in my life deserve to know who they've been dealing with. Nicole, my attorney, will be in touch. Tyler, I believe several people here have questions about how you've been managing their money. I set down the microphone and walked toward the exit. Kevin and Brian fell in behind me. Behind us, the chaos began. Shouting, crying, accusations. Someone was already on the phone, probably with a lawyer or an accountant. Someone else was filming on their cell phone. The story would be all over social media by midnight. I didn't look back. We ended up at Kevin's house. The 3 of us sitting in his den with a bottle of scotch that cost more than it should have. That was... Brian shook his head, searching for the right word. That was something. You okay? Kevin asked. I took a long drink. I don't know. Ask me tomorrow. Kevin's wife had gone to bed, giving us his place at Humphreys. The TV was on mute. Some late-night talk show host silently mugging for the camera. Her face, man, Brian said. When those screens changed, I thought she was going to pass out. Tyler's was better, Kevin added. That moment when he realized everyone knew. When those 3 guys turned to look at him, I thought Jenkins was going to strangle him right there in the ballroom. Marcus Jenkins, 72 years old, retired oncologist. Tyler managed his retirement portfolio, 300,000, that was supposed to see him through his final years. And Tyler had been stealing from it to pay duing for my wife. He deserves everything that's coming, I said. They both do. Brian refilled his glass. You know this is going to be all over town by morning, right? People were filming. I know. And you're okay with that? I thought about it, about the alternative. Confronting Nicole privately, watching her cry and make excuses, probably convincing myself to give her another chance. About the way these things usually go. The cheaters apologize, the faithful spouses take them back, and nothing changes until it happens again and again. Yeah, I said. I'm okay with it. Kevin raised his glass to nuclear options. We drank. The aftermath unfolded like dominoes falling. Nicole called 47 times that night. I didn't answer. Her texts cycled through the stages of grief in real time. "How could you do this to me? Please, Greg, let me explain. It's not what you think. I made a mistake. One mistake. You had no right to humiliate like that. You'll regret this. I'll destroy you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please answer the phone." Her parents drove her to a hotel. I heard later that her mother cried with her, held her, told her everything would be okay. Her father barely spoke. He'd grown up on a farm, believed in handshakes and keeping promises. His daughter had broken something fundamental, and he didn't know how to reconcile that with the girl he'd raised. I changed the locks on Sunday morning. By the time Nicole drove over, still in yesterday's makeup, her belongings were boxed neatly in the garage with a note taped to the top box. "Your attorney can contact mine. Do not attempt to enter to residence." She stood in the driveway for 20 minutes, mascara running, screaming obscenities at the closed door. Mrs. Henderson across the street pretended to water her already dead garden while watching the whole thing. Let her watch. Let everyone watch. I was done hiding. Tyler's destruction was swift and thorough. 3 clients cornered him at the party before he could escape, demanding immediate audits of their accounts. By Monday, Preston Wealth Management had placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. By Friday, the SEC had opened a formal inquiry based on multiple complaints. The audit took 6 weeks. It revealed $247,000 in misappropriated funds over 3 years, client money stolen to finance hotels and jewelry and dinners and all the small luxuries of betrayal. Criminal charges followed: wire fraud, embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty. His attorney negotiated a plea deal: 18 months at a federal minimum security facility, 3 years probation, and full extradition. Amanda got everything else: the house, primary custody of their kids, alimony, and what remained of his retirement accounts. Tyler Brooks would leave prison at 44 years old with nothing. No career, no family, no money, no future. Just a felony conviction and the knowledge that he'd traded everything for an affair with his wife's best friend. The divorce took 11 weeks. Longer than I'd hoped, shorter than Diana had warned. Divorce is a marathon, not a sprint, she told me during one of our many meetings. Nicole's attorney is going to try to track this out, wear you down, make you want to settle just to be done with it. Don't let him. I won't. Good. She shuffled through her files. Now, let's talk about their latest motion. They're claiming emotional distress from the public exposure, asking for damages. I almost laughed. She's claiming emotional distress. She spent a year lying to me, sleeping with her best friend's husband in my bed, and she's claiming emotional distress. Welcome to family law, Greg. Nothing is too absurd to try. Nicole hired Mitchell Garner, an aggressive attorney who tried every trick in the book. He argued that I humiliated her. True, but not illegal. He claimed the Ring surveillance was an invasion of privacy. It wasn't my property, my system. He demanded psychological evaluation of me for controlling behavior. Diana shut that down with evidence of Nicole's fabricated abuse claims. When Diana's team found the folder on Nicole's laptop, the one labeled insurance, full of draft text messages she'd planned to fabricate showing me as abusive, draft emails painting me as a villain. Garner's case collapsed entirely. Your client planned to commit perjury, Diana told him in a private meeting. We can introduce this in court, in which case she'll face potential criminal charges for attempted fraud, or she can accept reasonable terms. Nicole accepted reasonable terms. She tried one last gambit first. About a week before the final settlement, A local news producer contacted me asking for comment on allegations made by my estranged wife. The story ran on a Tuesday evening. Nicole, in a soft, focus interview, carefully applied makeup that made her look vulnerable rather than polished. Tears streaming down her face, hands clasped in her lap. "I made a mistake," she said to the camera, "a terrible mistake. But what my husband did, publicly humiliating me in front of 200 people, destroying my reputation, my friendships, everything. That wasn't justice. That was cruelty." The interviewer nodded sympathetically. "Some would say he was entitled to be angry. Of course he was. I expected him to be angry. I expected him to yell, to demand answers, to be hurt. That's human. What I didn't expect was this systematic destruction of my life. He planned it for weeks. He didn't confront me, didn't give me a chance to explain or apologize. He just executed me publicly." She dabbed at her eyes. "It makes you wonder if this is who Howes was underneath, if I ever really knew him at all." For about 6 hours she had sympathy. The comments on the station's website were split. Some calling her Lanston, others pointing out that maybe she shouldn't have cheated in the first place. Then Diana released our response. Not emotional, clinical. A timeline of the affair with supporting evidence. Nicole's consultation with a divorce attorney 6 weeks before I found out. Proof that she was planning her own exit before I ever saw that footage. The folder of fabricated evidence she'd prepared. Screenshots of the draft text messages she was going to use to claim I was abusive. My client didn't act out of cruelty, Diana told reporters. He acted out of self-preservation. Mrs. Taylor wasn't just having an affair. She was preparing to frame her husband for abuse that never occurred in order to maximize her settlement. The evidence is irrefutable. I did one interview myself. Calm, factual, no anger in my voice, even though I felt it burning in my chest. I didn't want this to be public. She made it public. I'm simply correcting a record. If you want to know who the real victim is in this situation, look at Amanda Brooks. Look at Tyler's clients, some of whom lost their retirement savings to fund his affair. Those are the people who deserve sympathy. Public opinion swung decisively. The news station ran a clarification that evening. Nicole's publicist stopped returning calls. Her victimhood narrative died. She got her personal belongings, her car, and 40,000. No alimony, no stake in my firm, no claim on the house or the retirement accounts she'd helped me plan. We signed the papers in a conference room at Diana's office. No courtroom drama, no final showdown. Nicole didn't look at me. Her attorney guided her out by the elbow, already talking about moving forward and fresh starts. Diana shook my hand. Clean win. I nodded. I should have felt triumph, vindication, something. Instead, I just felt tired. I sold the house. Couldn't live there anymore. Not with the ghosts. The new place was smaller. A townhouse near the university with a yard just big enough for Murphy, the golden retriever I adopted 2 months after the divorce was final. Business was better than ever. The exposure had ironically boosted my profile. People admired someone who handled betrayal with strategy instead of explosions. "You kept your head?" one client told me. "That's the kind of person I want designing my buildings." Amanda and I stayed in touch. Not romantic. Neither of us was ready for that, and AF would be. But we understood each other in ways nobody else could. She was doing better than I expected. The kids were resilient in the way kids are, adapting to their new normal with a flexibility that adults lose somewhere along the way. Her daughter Emma asked once why Daddy lives somewhere else now. And Amanda had told her simply that sometimes grown-ups make bad choices and have to deal with the consequences. That's all she needs to know for now. Amanda told me, someday when she's older, she can learn the whole truth if she wants. But not now. I started dating again after 6 months. Carefully, cautiously, like a man walking on ice he's not sure will hold. Her name was Elizabeth, structural engineer at a competing firm, which we joked was a hunklet of interest. We'd met at an industry conference, ended up at the same table for dinner. She was smart, direct, with no patience for games or manipulation. I heard about your situation, she said on our second date over Italian food and decent wine. I'm not going to pretend I didn't. I set down I funk, and I think you handled it better than most people would have. When my ex-husband cheated on me, I threw his PlayStation out the window and Kate his car. Not exactly proud of that. You were married before? Or 6 years. He fell for his personal trainer. It's a cliché for a reason. She shrugged. The point is, I understand what you went through and I'm not expecting you to be over it. That's surprisingly reasonable. I've been told I'm alarmingly practical. She smiled, and it was the first genuine smile I'd felt like returning in months. So, here's my proposal. We take this slow. No pressure, no expectations. Just 2 people who've been burned trying to figure out if they can trust anyone again. That sounds good, I said. And it did. You ever regret it? She asked me once over coffee. The way you did it? The public part? Yeah. I thought about it. They were going to spin themselves as victims no matter what. At least this way everyone knows the truth. Nobody has to wonder. She nodded slowly. I think about what would have happened if you hadn't seen that footage. If the camera hadn't been on, they could have done this for years, Craig. Decades, we would have died not knowing. I know. Funny how something as simple as a doorbell camera changes everything. It wasn't funny, but I understood what she meant. Kevin, Brian, and I were back at the lake cabin in October. 1 year since everything changed. Same tradition, same fire pit, same bourbon. To surviving, Kevin said, raising his glass. To surviving, we echoed. My phone buzzed, ring notification. For a moment, just a moment, my stomach clenched. Old instincts, old fear. Then I looked at the footage and laughed. Murphy had knocked over a potted plant on my porch and was examining the scattered soil with great interest, tail wagging. Everything okay? Kevin asked. I pocketed the phone, picked up my drink. Yeah, just the dog making trouble. Brian raised his glass again. To trouble. The fire crackled. The lake was quiet. Somewhere in Florida, Nicole was starting over under her maiden name. I didn't keep tabs anymore. For the first time in a year, I felt like myself again,